Hey everyone, it's Maddie and me, and today we're going to be going over the books we've read so far this year, as well as our TBR for the mini reading rush. So far I've read 4 books this year, which I'm really proud of, with the amount of time that I've had to read them. And they're all from the TBR shelf that Maddie and I assembled at the very beginning of the year, so 3 of them are books that Maddie has read that I haven't, and 1 of them is completely new. We recently decided as well that we weren't going to buy any more books until the majority of those books were finished, and that is something we're slowly chugging along at, and each book that I complete off that TBR just makes me more inspired to pick another one up. First we have Take a Chance on Me by Beth, Garrod, and this is about Meg, who gets to go on holiday to a Greek island because her father is the accountant on a film set. So he brings his 2 daughters along with him. Meg also has a kissing curse where she seems to injure every boy that she's ever been romantically interested in, and so she's trying to shake that curse while she's on holiday. It's a little bit Mamma Mia-esque with the amount of love interests, and then she's got her best friend Anita back home who she's just messaging throughout the whole thing. It's silly and fun and kind of like a new wave Georgia Nicholson book. I thought 4 boys would be too many boys and that would just turn me off, but how each one is sort of got through, if that makes sense, works with the plot. It's not overwhelming. It's not like a Bella Swan situation where she's just got loads of people fawning over her. And there's like 2 references to BTS in this book, so that's perfect. Next book I have to talk about is The Serpent King by Jeff Zentner, and this is one of Maddie's favourite books, or it was in the year that she read it, which I think was 2016.
I read it in first year of uni. I got the ARC as well, so it would be a year before.
Yeah, 2015 then.
Jesus.
Whoa. This has been on my TBR for 5 years, which is disgustingly long, so it was about time I got round to it, and I don't know why, I just decided to pick it up. I think it was because I was like easing myself into the Maddie TBR. I knew the expectations were high, particularly for this one, although I think the distance gave some perspective. Devastatingly sad story at points about 3 friends who are preparing to go to university, and they're all a little bit afraid of the change that's going to come. The main character Dill, his father is in prison for some weird snake religious cult thing, and then he has 2 best friends. Lydia is a fashion blogger and she's got her sights set on New York, and Travis, who is perfectly happy to stay in his small town with his lumberjack job. So they're like a little unique mix of people, and it is mostly like a character story. There really isn't a lot of plot, it's just exploring their relationships, and then something devastating happens halfway through, and I'm pleased that the book gave like enough time to deal with the aftermath of that. The one thing that I really didn't like was that 2 of the main characters got together. I just, that kind of like took away from the friendship side of it for me. It's not that I don't mind childhood friends into lovers, but I think this story for me would have just like meant more if it had just been a friendship bond. I don't know. That's just how it was setting up from the beginning, so it felt like it sort of came out of sort of left field, and then I was like, oh no, I wasn't prepared to read a childhood friends to lovers story. This one deals with like a lot of complex emotions as well. I really liked how the characters were all very, very flawed, and it's equally about Dill's 2 friends as it is Dill, because I think it's told in 3rd person if I remember rightly. So it like has narrative time relative to all 3 of them, so you really feel like you know them. I've read 3 books during quarantine, 2 that are thrillers slash books that put you on edge, and the other one a super light fluffy contemporary. So first I read Beware That Girl by Teresa Toten. This was a book that B had read ages ago as an ARC. When did this come out? I think it was like 2017. But since moving it to my personal TBR shelf, I felt more inspired to read it, and I thought I'll just go for the oldest one. It's about 2 Gossip Girl-esque characters, Kate and Olivia. Kate is the new girl, and she kind of profiles Olivia and wants to become her best friend. I thought it was going to be a whole taking over Olivia's place situation, but instead the friendship between them is actually quite genuine, and Kate ends up taking on a protector role for Olivia, who is being groomed by one of their teachers. There are a couple of plot twists in relation to the characters' backstories. It's very much focalised through Kate, she's the first person, and Olivia's chapters are told in 3rd person, so you're much closer to Kate, which is, I guess, why you don't suspect that anything will happen to Olivia. And I'd have to say that the first half of the book I enjoyed way more than the second half. As soon as the student-teacher relationship was introduced, I was like, oh no, I kind of want to unsubscribe from this. And I thought that the twist at the end wasn't actually well planted enough to make it worth anything. So I think it's a very average book for me, but I wasn't really interested in reading anything entirely unique. After not reading very much at all, and kind of falling out of the habit of it, I was very much looking for something that I think I would feel familiar with and could predict, so this followed through on those criteria. Next is Dead Popular by Sue Wallman, who is my favourite thriller writer from the UK. I have loved all 3 of her books so far, and this one was no exception. I did really like it. See How They Lie is still my favourite of her 4 books, but this one was set in a boarding school, so I knew I was going to enjoy it a lot. But it does take quite a while to get to the murder side of things. The investigation and the scandal only really crops up in the last like 80 pages or so, so it's slow going, but it's got to like establish all of the hierarchies for boarding school, and I think it did that really successfully. It's got an interesting main character, like you don't really like her that much, so I was mostly reading to see like, well, who is gonna die out of all of the characters that were introduced? And I thought it was convincing in the end, like how it wrapped up. And the culprit wasn't what I was expecting, and the whole like runaway party accident element of it was really engaging, and it was a quick read that I managed to get through in like 2 days. Chronologically, the next book on my TBR shelf was After the Fire by Will Hill. This is a book that B gave 5 stars, I think, when she read it, so I knew I should have high expectations, and there's also been a lot of buzz about it in the YA community because it got nominated for the YA Book Prize, maybe in 2018. When did this come out? 2017. This is just the land of 2017 books. This is all about Moonbeam, and it's told in a before and after narrative as she is taken to a like clinic to talk through her issues after being taken away from a cult. It all went down in flames, quite literally, and Moonbeam thinks that she's to blame for this. So the whole book is her telling her story, figuring out her involvement with it and how much she is to blame for what happened. This was so engaging, and with this book, because it's quite big, I thought it would intimidate me, so I just thought I'm going to take this at a natural pace. My instinct with books is always to try and read them in one sitting, because I've got into this terrible habit of if I put a book down, then it's very unlikely that I'll go back to it. So with this, I was intentionally slowing my pace, stopping at points I thought would be more intriguing to keep going with, just to prove to myself that I can read a book over the course of like 5 days. And I think my reading experience of this one definitely enhanced the book because Moonbeam is so slowly unlocking how she feels, and she's hiding things and lying about things, so I felt completely pulled along with her story. While she is an unreliable narrator, she's not unlikable in any way. I think you're completely sympathetic towards her the whole time. I loved her interactions with both the FBI agent she was talking to and the doctor who was overseeing everything. And whilst one cult book is not unlike another, I think there's very few things that you can do with a cult book that's not unexpected, because if you've heard about one, then it's pretty much the same thing is going to be happening in all of them. So whilst I couldn't say that I was surprised by the twists and turns, I definitely think this is the most comprehensive cult book I've read, and you could tell that a lot of research had gone into it, especially because it's actually based on like a real event that happened. One slightly negative thing for me was that it felt very repetitive. The fact that we were always in the same room in the after sections of the book in the interview scenario, and some of the questions felt quite leading, and her routine was very similar in the clinic, meant I was definitely more invested in what was happening like during the time that the cult was active. And that also made the book feel like it went on and on just because you were back in the same situation over and over again, but still very enjoyable, very thrilling. So if any part of what I've said interests you, then I definitely recommend picking it up. And finally, we have my favourite book that I've read so far this year, and that is The Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds. This is the story of Jack and Kate who meet at a party and they fall in love over like 4 months or something, but Kate is holding in a massive secret which sort of crumbles absolutely everything Jack thought he knew, and suddenly he's being booted back into the past to go right back to when they first met, and it sort of becomes his Groundhog Day goal to make everything happen but perfectly this time. And he goes back again and again and again, and the way that this story is told is in 5 parts. So the first part is obviously the longest because that's giving you like the lay of all of the events, and then each one fills in all of the gaps. Like, when I think about how perfectly this is constructed, I just want to like scream because it's amazing. The way everything fits together and the things that are missing from one timeline are then like really emphasized in the next one, to do with Jack's relationships with his 2 best friends, and also his parents. Just A+ writing, honestly. And the best thing is the author knows when to tell you things and when to leave things for later. Like, you know that some of the things that happen in the like other variations, the alternate timelines, also happened in the first one, but he skipped those scenes because he knew they would have like more resonance when he told the story again later. It's just delightful, it's beautiful, deliciously crafted, just so, so good. And the main character's voice, wonderful, so lovable. The characters are really funny and quirky, and it's probably one of my favourite love stories as well. Like, I was so convinced by it, especially the fact that it was happening over such a short period of time. And it goes a little bit outlandish as well. Obviously there's a few like sci-fi elements, as any Groundhog Day story is, and I think that's actually one of my favourite tropes. I just could not recommend it enough. Like, 5 stars, incredible. And it's a big book, and I haven't been reading that much this year, so the fact that I got through it A, so quickly, B, like truly I was dedicated to reading it as well. Like I was lost in the story. It was just amazing. So I think that experience was a bit euphoric for me. It was like, wow, I love reading again. So this book proved to me why I love reading. I love it. I love it. And I can't wait for Maddie to read this. So I hope that she picks it up very, very soon. I hope you pick it up soon. It's great. And as a real palate cleanser after that, I read Signs Point to Yes by Sandy Hall. This is a contemporary romance about a girl called Jane who is babysitting for her crush Teo's younger sisters. Her conflict is that she doesn't want to go to university, she's really not interested, and she's really lacking purpose because of that, and Teo is trying to find his birth father and track him down. Jane also has an older sister, Margot, who is the apple of her parents' eyes, and someone who Jane definitely feels jealous of, but Margot's conflict is that she is yet to come out to her parents as bisexual. It's been a while since I read a Sandy Hall book, so the last one I read was Been Here All Along, maybe a year or 18 months ago, and I have to say, even though it's a short book just like this one, I think both books suffered the same issue of not really having enough meat to them. So Jane and Teo both have a perspective in this, and then Margot has a few chapters as well, and I think it would have been so much better if each character was just fleshed out more, that we got to spend more time with each of them, and scenes happened so quickly, especially towards the end when they decide to go on a road trip. That all transpires within 30 pages, and that could have been a really exciting section of the book that could have lasted 100. So while I definitely wasn't disappointed in the book because it gave me exactly what I was expecting it to, it definitely had a lot more potential than it delivered. Maybe it's my fault for hyping up the babysitter element of this book because I really wanted some Babysitters Club vibes, but I'll just have to settle with watching the movie, which is one of our favourite things to ever exist. So the first challenge for the stay-at-home readathon is to read a book with a house on the cover. So I have gone with Under a Dancing Star by Laura Wood, and there's a little Italian villa right there. And my choice is The Last Boy and Girl in the World by Siobhan Vivian, which has lots of little houses underwater at the bottom. This was almost too perfect because it's the one that B most wants me to read on my TBR shelf, and now I have no choice because it fits a challenge. We're both going to read the same book for the next challenge, which is A Book Set Where You Wish to Go. And that's The Proof of Forever by Alexa Hillier. This is one we read years ago, like
5 years.
2015 we read it. Are you sure? Maybe even 2014. I feel sick at that. Don't say that. It's been that long.
No.
It has. This book only came out in 2015. Oh, yikes. How has it been 5 years?
That's so long.
I know. And the place where we want to go is the past. This is a time travel book. When all of this didn't happen and when we could see our friends. Then we're going to double up on one of the challenges, which is to read a book that makes you smile and read something all in the same room. And that's The Last Summer of the Garrod Girls by Jessica Spotswood. This is one that we bought at the last Yark we went to, so also been on our shelf for quite a long time. But it's one of those books that we've been waiting for like the perfect moment to read because it's summery.
It has to be the summer.
Yeah,
You want
to
it gets
read
into
it.
winter and I haven't read it and I'm like,
That's another 6 months I've got to wait. Exactly. So it's about 4 sisters. There's nothing I love more than like an ensemble book, especially if each girl or each plot is given the time it needs.
I mean, that's the same with Proof of Forever, so they're very similar books, so we'll see.
Hence why we're each going, like, we're going to read one and then swap, because I feel like they're going to be very similar. Don't really know very much. I don't think I want to read the back, though, and know what the girls are going on, because I want it to feel kind of like rom-com, sitcom
I think it will be.
vibes.
I'm very, very excited.
Yes. So hopefully we'll be smiling the whole time we read it. Also, we've got a little colour palette going on.
Yes, we did. We said aesthetic for our pictures that we can take with it for the Instagram.
Hey.
Yay. Books we read, books we want to read. That is the year summarised. 4 months of reading in one frame.
I also think that it's ambitious that in 3...
I want to read just as many books.
Exactly. Just as many books as it's taken me 3 months to read in like 3 days.
We'll see you on our next video. Maybe we'll even vlog reading these. Yeah. So we'll see you soon. Bye!